everyone for joining us today. The focus of today's session is going to be all about how you can build a great customer experience with Mixpanel, MoEngage, and 5. So I wanted to first kind of kick it off with going through our recap, our presenters, and giving an overview of the session today. So really excited to be here with all of you. My name is Megan, and I manage the North America marketing at MoEngage. I'm joined today by our partner 5. We have Dennis on the line, who's our senior growth specialist, and Taya, who's our head of growth strategy. So today's webinar, we're really going to focus on 3 key areas. We're going to talk to you about how you can increase conversion rates, improve engagement on your app, and measure the impact of retention. And so remember, if you do have a question for today's webinar, we would love to hear it. Just use your Q&A panel on the webinar dashboard, and you'll be able to ask your question there. We're going to cover all questions at the end of the webinar. And with that, I will pass it over to Taya for an introduction of 5.
Thank you, Megan. So what's special about 5 is that we're passionate about making digital products successful. We're around 250 people in Brooklyn, New York, and Zagreb, Croatia. And our clients really range from established enterprises that have a steady growth path that needs amping up, to self-funded startups that need a service agency that has the full capabilities of the strategic and operational work to set up the product for success. If you can go to the next slide, I can tell you that our agency has been on the market for the last 13 years. And while we had great success with delivering beautiful design, efficient development, after the product launch, our clients asked us, okay, now what? And on the next slide is where the growth team emerged, because products can only rely on organic growth and a self-sufficient product idea to some extent. After the much needed product discovery, the design process, development, the growth phase kicks in. And as we know, there are a lot of ways to approach growth. And on the next slide, how we approach growth and how we think of growth is basically boiling it down to 4 questions. How do we get users? Do they recognize the value? Will they come back? And are we maximizing revenue? On the next slide, you can see that our services are approached in a holistic way. So we do not view just growth as having a lot of users, just getting, a great cost per install, but really looking at the whole funnel and looking at the data that is following the user from a first touch point of attribution, which is, again, a view on a, let's say, social media platform, but to see really how that user is behaving when they land to the app store, when they land inside our app. Are they converting? Are we really getting the most of them? And really, this is needed in terms of for a successful growth strategy. So having a successful user acquisition strategy and execution, app store optimization, engagement, data analytics, these are all the services that we cover for our clients to really make sure, again, they are successful in the long run. We have a lot of success stories, but this is tied to data analysis and engagement. And really what we can see is with a lot of our clients, we can move the needle with looking at data in details, really deep diving, and making those personalized campaigns on engagement platforms, of course, like MoEngage. And we saw some results that are, 30% engagement increase with a major US streamlining and streaming service, conversion to paid increase by 8% when you have millions of, users and people that are subscribing. This is a lot in revenue. And we generated 32% more taxi rides for a major US taxi service. This is just by, leveraging data and communicating with clients via in-app, push, and engagement methods.
Thank you for the overview. So I'll give a quick overview of MoEngage. I recognize many of you on the line are familiar with Mixpanel, but you may not be familiar with MoEngage. And so really MoEngage is an insights-led customer engagement platform. We help product owners and marketers gain insights into their user base, but also providing them the solutions they need to be able to engage those consumers across channels. So you'll kind of see a couple of the key areas. We allow our customers to analyze behavior and product trends. So you can aggregate data from Mixpanel as well as multiple sources. Then you can segment users based on that data. and then really leverage personalization across channels like SMS or in-app or push to be able to have those one-to-one campaigns and really engage via personalized messages. And then of course, giving you the analytics and tools you need to optimize that engagement. So these are just some of the channels we have on the mobile side, on the mobile app side: push notifications, in-app messages, cards, which is a newer feature for us, really allows a user to create personalized offers or recommendations that are dynamic, and they can be delivered straight to your customer's app inbox or their newsfeed within your app. We also have channels beyond just the mobile app, so email, SMS, ad networks, social chat like a WhatsApp, and then you can integrate in call center IVR. These are just some of the customers that we work with. We have, more than 1,000 customers across the globe, and really help support them across different industries and use cases that they have. And so with that, I'm going to actually pass it over to Dennis. Give me 1 second while I adjust the sharing.
Okay, Megan, thank you for this. So as Megan mentioned, we have like 3 subtopics of today's webinar, and I'm gonna go through 3 of them and hopefully present one actionable insight that any one of us can implement our business and get basically immediate results. So the first one is actually increasing conversion, and how we do that is by leveraging customer data with behavioral analytics. So first of all, there are different types of customer data. First one is the demographic data that tells us of the user's location, age, and so on. Second one is the technographic data, which tells us of the user's platform, operating system. And this can help, but they're not really answering the question, how are users using our product? So if we truly want to personalize our campaigns, we need behavioral data. That means that's raw event data that's generated by the user, and that tells us how the users move through the app, what features they used, and so on. So using that, we can then apply behavioral analytics that spots trends and patterns in user behavior, and that will enable us to map out the user journey. So meaning we'll be able to tell how users ship through the life cycle, so how they come to the app, what they do first, what they do second, what keeps them retained, and so on. So now that we've set up a foundation, let's connect that to the LTV, and this is partially the reason why I like the user journey approach so much. So most of the time, LTV is our key performance metric, and obviously we want to increase revenue as much as possible. So every user journey should end up with some kind of a desirable outcome, and by nature, those outcomes will most likely be tied to increasing revenue. So as we push users through the life cycle, the revenue is most likely to grow disproportionately to that step by step. And I always like to emphasize that the start of the life cycle is the highest impact area, actually, because the better effect you have there, the better effect you're going to have later on. So it is partially going to snowball through all these phases of the life cycle that you set up. So let's explain how it works on the slide. So a really simple user journey set up on the slide, meaning the user comes to the app, they enter their email, they start a free trial, they finish a free trial, purchase a subscription, and they renew a subscription. So setting some really arbitrary conversion rates here, and let's say that 1,000 users enter the email in our app. We can assume that maybe 50% will convert to free trial, 80% of those will actually purchase a subscription, and 75% of them will actually renew a subscription. And let's assume that our monthly subscription price is at $10. If you translate it to revenue, we get like 7% for $7,000 in revenue from just this simple funnel. But let's assume that we address this drop-off zone and we increase the conversion rate at this step to 55%, which is a 10% increase. Then the story looks a little bit different, because then from the 1,000 users we start from, we don't convert 500, we convert 550. And this translates to all the steps after, because if we apply the conversion rates we already had to those 550, we'll get more users in each subsequent step, basically. So if we aggregate that, we increase the conversion rate by 10%, but the revenue increase is actually 11.5%. And we'll actually grow by 1.5%, which each additional step we add to this life cycle. And have in mind that this is really, really simple life cycle. And we address just one drop-off zone. If we address multiple drop-off zones, we will have much different results, and they will be much better. Yeah, and another simple example how we can map out a simple user journey, and this time it's for Netflix. So this time around, our desirable outcome is the month-round retention, meaning that we want users to renew their subscription after first 30 days. So the user downloads the app, they start a free trial, they add a video to playlist, and maybe we want them to do that because we know that users who add something to the playlist, they retain for longer. Same idea with users who watch the videos in the next 3 days. User goes then and purchases a subscription, they watch 4 videos a week, and renews a subscription after 30 days. And as you may have spotted, each of these steps is a potential drop-off zone, meaning that not all users who download the app will, of course, start a free trial. And these are perfect opportunities to target users with personalized campaigns. So you probably heard of a phrase, you need to send the right message at the right time. And this model enables us to do exactly that, because this is what personalization truly is, meaning that you have a user who did not successfully start a free trial, then you can find that user, isolate him, and target him a personalized campaign, which will be perfect for him at that point in time, and your chance of converting him will be much higher than just blasting your communication to all of your user base. And just a quick 3-step example how you can identify these users and do personalized cohorts in Mixpanel, and then you can target them with MoEngage, for example. So let's use a free trial case as an example. So I have a simple 3-step funnel report here laid out. So it starts with a registration start, user enters the email, and they start a free trial. So this report shows us that 54% of these users who start the registration actually start the free trial. So we can assume that we pretty sure have 46% of users in the drop-off zone, and we can surely get some of them to convert. And I really want to emphasize this step, which is bolded on the slide, is to validate. So if you had a funnel like this and your conversion rate was maybe at 95%, then it might really not make sense to target these users, since your organic conversion rate is already so high, the campaign could not have a lot of impact there. So you maybe want to focus on some higher impact areas that you can have much higher impact on. So really focus on those high impact areas first. And then after validating your user journey through analytics, you can easily create these cohorts by duplicating the audience criteria and target them with personalized campaigns through multi-channel marketing, like the Megan mentioned, email, push notification, in-app, what really fits the user life cycle. And this validation step will also give you a really good foundation on how to track the results and the impact of the conversion rate after you launch those campaigns, because you can revisit this slide a month after and see how the conversion rate changed after you launch the campaigns and so on. Okay, so let's move on how you can improve engagement with your reps, how you can identify the gaps in your product usage, and then execute campaigns. So let's first talk how to identify those gaps of usage in your app. And to do so, you must first define an appropriate engagement metric. And the one I like to rely on the most is called usage interval, often called natural usage habit. And it tells you the frequency of which users naturally use the app with no campaigns influencing them. So it's really important to understand your usage interval, because if you really base your campaigns and analysis on a gut feeling, you might be forcing users against their natural behavior, and you're most likely actually going to have a negative effect on their usage and long-term metrics like retention and LTV. So let's take three quick examples of high-level estimation, how a usage interval can look for different kinds of apps. For example, Instagram. So engaging with Instagram does not really take a lot of commitment. And we can pretty easily assume that users use Instagram on a daily cadence. And you can also argue that people use Instagram much more often. So if we have a marketing strategy driving users to use the app every single day, I don't see a problem with that. But if we have Airbnb, for example, most of people are not really traveling very often. So the user interval is surely much different compared to Instagram. So I would say that a monthly or quarterly cadence is much more likely. And I would also like to emphasize that seasonality is also a big thing for our service. So during the holidays, people are most likely using Airbnb a lot more. And you can say that the pandemic has also changed their natural usage habits. So I surely think they had to adapt their marketing strategy to that. And then there's a third one, which is a bit more complex one, is Netflix. So when it comes to Netflix or other streaming services, we can surely say there are a lot of distinct groups with different usage intervals. So some could watch something every single day, some could only watch for the weekend, and some could binge a show in 2 days and never come again. So with Netflix, there are some dangers that could appear. So I would kind of point out two things and takeaways that we don't want to force a natural usage habits that don't make sense. So it'd be very dangerous for Netflix to adopt a strategy with an aim to promote daily app usage for two different reasons. Because if you look at the illustration below, we have like arbitrary 4 different groups. So on the left, we have users who watch something once a month. Then we have users who watch something on a weekend. Then we have users who watch something a few times a week, and users who are the most engaged and watch something every single day. So obviously, we, all the stakeholders we have, would want someone to watch every single day, because if they're so engaged, they will never churn, they will be super happy, and revenue will go through the roof. But in the real world, that's just not possible. So if we were to enforce such a strategy on a user who watches something once a month, that user will most likely be even more likely to churn than he was organically. So we need to take these baby steps and isolate these segments first and do a individual marketing strategy for each of these. So meaning that if we want users to watch something every single day at the end of the month, we should first take the user who watches only once a month to watch something on the weekends, and then watch something a few times a week, and really push them through the funnel that way and not skip steps. Because on a point 2, we really want to encourage and amplify the existing behavioral habits, and we don't want to enforce unnatural ones. And then a really quick 3-step usage habit analysis that anyone can really do for any of apps or platforms you have. So first, we want to define an active user, so a metric that tells us how we define a user as an active. So let's take Instagram, for example, as a social media app. In this case, we can say that if the user has opened the app, we can consider them active. But let's say in other cases, a Peloton app, which is a workout app, we want to make sure that our user actually consumes some content before closing the app. And under the assumption that the user opens the app, they don't consume content, they don't find it valuable, and they're more likely to churn. So we want to consider user active only if they start a workout after starting the app. And the same case could be also applied to Netflix. So if something opens the app, we won't consider them active until they start watching a video. This will make our overall engagement worse, but our insights and actions we can do upon that will be much more impactful. So in my opinion, it's really worth doing so. So step 1, define what really makes your users an active user. Coming up, step 2. So define your observable audience. So I would suggest to observe users who develop some kind of a habit for the app. So have at least 30 days of data, in my opinion. A tip is to go for the users who are in the 2nd month of using the app. And by this, you will clean up your one-time users that you can see on the graph, which is this huge spike at the beginning. Users download the app and never really open it. And this will also enable you to have enough data to analyze. And I really want to emphasize that. So basically, this is how why would I exclude and take the rest users in the analysis. I really want to emphasize that different stages in the user lifecycle also answer different questions, meaning that if we take users in the second month of the analysis in their subscription, we will get an answer how they behave. But let's say you have a 30-day free trial, you can also take those users and make an analysis on top of them and see how those users behave and what are their usage habits in that first 30 days of your free trial, because they could be much different compared to the others, and your campaigns would look much different compared to that. And once we've taken those users in the second month of their subscription, we can group them by the activity metric that we've chosen. In this case, it is the video played. So we can see that we have 19% of users who watch a video every single day. We have 17% of users who watch the videos every second day, and so on. And using this information, we can really validate if our users are using the app by the wanted frequency against the assumption that we have. So sometimes we think, okay, our users would want us, we want our users to use the app every single day, and our marketing strategy is enforcing that, but that might not be true. And we see that from the graph of above. Yeah, and once you have these cohorts, it's really easy to target these people with precise and personalized campaigns, and it is basically guaranteed that you're gonna make an impact on their behavior if you really approach this from kind of a cohort personalized perspective against just basically blasting all your users as if their behavior was the same all the time.
Thanks, Dennis. So we're just going to jump into a quick poll just to understand some of the current challenges you may have right now. So if you wouldn't mind, just take a couple seconds to answer this poll, and then we'll continue on. Great. Thank you all. All right, back to you, Dennis.
Thank you. And coming to the third topic, so how you can measure the impact on retention and other metrics post-campaign, because none of the before really makes a difference if we cannot attribute those changes and attribute the good things that we're doing, because in the end, it all comes down to the revenue. So speaking on the measuring the impact of campaigns on retention and LTV, I first wanted to put into contrast with short-term attribution and metrics that we're interested in immediately after launching the campaign. So when we're launching an individual campaign, we all have pretty much the same approach. So we have a problem we have to solve. Is that to increase purchases, announce a new feature, or whatever? We create cohorts and content for the campaign, identify those users. We choose our control group, which is a significant sample for us, and then we launch the campaigns, measure the results and the uplift. And obviously, we want a higher conversion rate that it would happen organically, since that is what defines the campaign as successful, that we drive more conversion that wouldn't happen without the campaign. Now, what the problem I have with this is measuring the long-term impact on retention and LTV, since the attribution for this type of campaigns is usually pretty short, and that is 3 to 7 days. And because of this, I've stumbled upon a few dangers, which I'm going to talk about on the next few slides. So yeah, summed up in 3 points. First of all, LTV will most likely disproportionately increase over time compared to the increase you see on individual campaigns. And this is something I mentioned in the earlier slides as well. So meaning that your campaign might bring additional 10 people to purchase the shoes from your store now, but you just potentially made a loyal customer, meaning that some of those users will surely have a positive experience, come back, and then buy again. And that repeating purchases will not be attributed to your campaign because it may happen a long time after your campaign, but it was still influenced by it. So that's reason number one. Second, the retention is most likely not going to be impacted by only one campaign. It's most likely that the positive effect is going to happen after a series of campaigns over a longer period of time. And that brings me to the third point, that if you aggregate the results of 4 campaigns or on some cadence, so let's say you're doing a quarterly report and you want to sum average your all campaigns, you're most likely not going to get a metric that reflects an actual LTV increase. And the main reason that why this happens in my case is that a short attribution window I already mentioned. So as you can see on the image on the bottom, we have 2 lines representing a conversion rate for our control group that receives no communication, and our treatment group that we're messaging with emails, push notifications, and so on. So we can assume that the control group has a steady conversion rate happening over time. And we see that the blue line, which represents treatment group, has a big spike after launching the campaign. And all the green that you can see are additional conversions that our campaign managed to drive. And that's great because this is the positive impact that we're seeing. But at the end of the graph, you can see the conversion rate of treatment actually go below control and in the red, which means that our campaign is actually having a negative impact at that time. And the main reason I identify this happens is because not all conversions we drive are the pure uplift. Some of them are just accelerated conversions that will happen anyway in the next few days, meaning that you have this gap in those days where you drove those accelerated conversions, meaning that you go below the control group. And with the short attribution window, which it ends, you report the conversion rate of that day, which could be, let's say, 5%. And you report, let's say, 10 additional conversions that you drove. But after that attribution window, you could have a negative effect, and meaning that you have 2 less conversions in those 2 next few days. Meaning that on a level of a quarter, your conversion rate might actually be a lot different compared to what you reported in the first place. And this can be a lot different as well. That positive impact could continue after the attribution window and so on. And the way how I solve this is basically using a feature that is called a global holdout, meaning that you can dedicate a certain percentage of your user base. That's usually a 5% or so, which just a sample you consider as significant for your audience, as a permanent control group that is excluded from all of your campaigns. And by doing so, we are able to look on the impact of our campaigns together over a period of time. Would that be a month or quarter, whatever. And because aggregating those individual campaigns does not work on in most cases, as I explained on the previous slide. As you can see on the slide in the Mixpanel, we have two cohorts that we created. So that's our global holdout or treatment control. And this is a simple retention report for the last 30 days. And you can easily see, basically, this is a 2-click report. You go to a retention report, you break it down by these 2 cohorts, and you can easily see how your campaigns impacted the retention of your users in the last 30 days. And what is really awesome for this solution that you can have so many layers to it is you can drill down with any additional filters and get additional insights basically forever. You can break this down by platform, break this down by additional events, attributes, and whatever, and really spend really months on this and just getting actionable insight off of this. And another layer I want to add to this is using actually multiple global holdouts. So if you have a lot of campaigns going on and you can categorize them, meaning that they have a different purpose compared to the others. For example, let's say you have a weekly newsletter and your goal with that is to maintain a good relationship with your users. And the other side, you have promotional campaigns that are purely conversion oriented and you want to just get your users to make a purchase. So then you can dedicate a certain percentage of your audience as a cohort that you will exclude only for a certain category of your campaigns. And that will enable you to determine the impact of only that campaign versus the impact of all campaigns together. Meaning that you could output something like, okay, my global holdout, which are users who received absolutely nothing, my treatment had a 20% better retention compared to that. But if you have these additional holdouts, which are users who received only newsletter, you can say, okay, but these users actually drove 15% better retention, while my coupon promotional emails only drove an additional 5%. And a useful little trick, and again, this can be broken down through a million other filters and gain a lot more useful information and insights just by applying additional filters. And this is not applicable only for retention. This is also applicable for every kind of report. So funnel report, behavioral analytics, absolutely everything.
Thanks so much, Dennis. So we just wanted to spend a couple more minutes talking about the benefits of the integration between Mixpanel and MoEngage. And so, from this integration, you saw a lot of different points that Dennis was making, a lot of insights, a lot of strategies throughout the presentation. We hope that with this integration, we will really help make it easier for users to be able to, analyze this data and then make that data actionable within our platform. And so simply you can sync those cohorts from Mixpanel to MoEngage with the click of a button. You can use that data directly within MoEngage. And from there, you can translate those insights into actionable opportunities. You can create hyper-personalized campaigns across channels, customer journeys within MoEngage. Our AI-based engine, it's called Sherpa, that will allow you to really help you orchestrate those campaigns and reach the audiences with the right message at the right time. And you can also just measure the long-term impact of your campaigns on lifetime value, retention, or revenue. And on the next slide, we just want to share how the integration works. So between the two platforms, a product owner or a marketer can leverage the cohorts built in MoEngage, and then you can trigger an AI-powered personalized messaging through MoEngage. And similarly, brands can sync that data from MoEngage back to Mixpanel to be able to measure the long-term impact on customer lifetime value. And so this integration is bidirectional. You can analyze your campaign's impact without having to export data between the two tools. And you can use it to track any and all downstream conversions from your marketing programs to really understand the effectiveness or the impact of your customer engagement efforts. And so just wanted to walk you through a quick customer story. This is Tata Sky, who is a direct broadcast satellite service based out of India. They are a great example of a company that's been able to really reap the benefits of this integration. They're analyzing customer behavior data from Mixpanel's analytics. They're using that within MoEngage to understand cohorts based on media consumption behavior, and then leveraging that data as part of their personalized campaigns to really engage and upsell their customers. And they've been able to see 150% improvement in the conversions as a result of those joint solutions. And with that, we're going to have another quick poll come up, and then we're going to move into Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A tab on your console within the Zoom webinar platform. And we'll have just a couple minutes for the poll and some questions to come in before we get started there. So you should see the poll on your screen. This is an opportunity for anyone who's on the line to be able to have a free consultation session with Five, where they can work with you to recognize some opportunities for your strategy. Great. And while those poll answers are still coming in, figured we could get started. We've seen a couple questions already. So this first one is for the Five team. what are some of the characteristics that you would look for in starting a personalization strategy? What are some of the things that you would evaluate?
That's a good question. And like on the first few slides, when I talked about user journeys, I talked about how to act upon the data you already have, but I did not really mention a lot that you really first need to set yourself goals which are achievable, and that you need a technical support to actually enable that, meaning that you need to have all those custom events, user attributes that will actually enable you to generate all those reports and to support the creative thinking that you actually may have, and to actually address all those problems that you may assume are happening in your app.
Great.
I would say also, sorry, from a strategic perspective, because definitely on an operational level, the taxonomy is going to set you up for success. But really, what does personalization mean to you? Personalization is not the same in a health app and in, let's say, a streaming app, because definitely to push out or send push notifications with HIPAA compliant data and data that is not for everyone to be seen is not acceptable. So thinking about what personalization is into your whole strategy is something that we also have to think about. So there are a lot of ways to approach this, but yeah, not just the strategic, but also technical perspective is needed on each and every engagement project.
Great, thank you. So another question, this one I think is for you, Dennis. So you talked a lot about identifying usage gaps. Once you identify those gaps, what are some ways to close the gap to drive more usage or engagement?
I think, personalized campaigns are the answer to that. And I think if you successfully identify those gaps, and if you can develop a content good enough to incentivize those users to actually come back, I think you'll see positive results. And what I really want to emphasize as well is really take a look at those usage intervals that you identify, because as I mentioned, you cannot just implement a kind of one marketing strategy across all of your users, because basically every user has a different usage habit, and you need a few different kind of marketing and engagement strategies for these users that will truly result in a positive improvement in your business. So yeah, I would think that's kind of the key thing here.
That's a great response. So one more question. This one I can take. So you mentioned MoEngage helps unify data sources. Aside from Mixpanel, what other data does customers generally bring into the platform? So this is a good question. You know, we can ingest data from multiple sources, you know, demographic data, behavioral data, geographical type data. You can ingest data from your mobile app, of course, but also web data, third-party sources, or partner data through APIs and integrations, and then even offline data such as like an in-store purchase. And then you're able to use this data similarly to what we talked about today throughout, you know, personalized campaigns, but then you can also analyze the efforts through funnels and cohorts and session data and dashboards, really to identify trends or opportunities or spot any gaps. And it looks like we don't have any other questions coming in. So with that, we will be ending the webinar. If you want to get in touch with us, on the next slide, you're going to see our personal contact details. Please do. We would love to hear from you. We'd like to thank our presenters and for everyone online for joining us today. And we'll be following up with a recording of the session in the coming days. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.